and I'll put the thing on as well.
Hello, everyone. We are the Psychic Kitchen Podcast. You can find us on Spotify and Facebook and many other platforms. There's even a link on my website.
Excellent. Right. Ready for the video? The music? The
Yep.
intro music?
Oh,
Let's
okay.
while we share it.
Hello, everyone. We are the Psychic Kitchen Podcast. Once again, you can find us on Spotify. I also have a link on my website, thomassawyer.com.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Hey, Bob. How you doing? Right. So, if anyone has any questions or anything that they would like to talk about, or any suggestions about topics to talk about, then feel free to let us know, and we'll get to you and get to the topics. But just to start off with, whilst we were chatting before we came on live, we were talking about the letting things go, how we can attract, say, so to speak, what we desire, but in a different way. And it was basically um, inspired. This way of thinking, or this sort of topic, was inspired by a video I saw of where Bashar. I'm sure most of you are familiar with Bashar, where he was talking about the way to attract what we want is not to raise our vibration to match that thing, but to let go of the things that are holding us back from attaining that thing. And I thought that was an interesting way of looking at it. It was so almost the opposite of what is generally taught in, say, the New Age movement. And yeah, Thomas, what do you think of that?
Well, I think it's really important because people really don't talk about these things. So people get really comfortable in holding on to things. I know I've done that myself. I'm sure you have too. But it's people get very comfortable in holding on to certain things because it makes them comfortable.
Mm,
Like people do not seek discomfort.
mm,
Sometimes that's how you change. I know with me, I don't think I ever talked about this, Jimmy, but I had a acupuncturist in Savannah, and
mm,
she was an exorcist. She did divergent channels, which when I asked my guides about it, there was maybe 3 people in the world that told me she did this kind of work,
mm,
and she would literally change entire people's lives. And when I
mm,
saw her, I was going through like a dramatic shift.
mm,
And even the first session I had with this woman, like my entire reality started shifting. And it was, she's essentially, and I don't quite understand how she does what she does, but she told me of one thing where a girl had come in. I feel like I should bring this up. So a girl had come in and she said, I don't even know why I'm here. She gets this a lot. And she's like, well, it's a 3-month process. You see me 3 times a week, you do all this. The girl is going to become this, she's going to become a famous actor in Hollywood. And she ended up, by the end of this 3 months, she moved to New York, because in Savannah, you have the biggest art school down there. One in the United States, one of the biggest. And so she, by the time she was done with this, I don't know if she graduated art school, I don't remember, but then she went to New York and she became this interior decorator, which is like a world famous one now. But she's like, her architecture's channeled from a totally different dimension.
All right, excellent.
But she just shifted her whole reality. And she kind of did that for me too, because I was looking at things from such a narrow focus of everything was like New Age or Christian or whatever. And then it just opened up this whole new can of worms. Because to her, the acupuncturist, I won't say her name, but the acupuncturist, she didn't even understand what Facebook was. Like she's packed solid with people, like packed. And she's like, Thomas, everything to me, like I know about ETs, but she's like, everything to me is 15th century Oriental medicine. And both.
Yeah.
That's it. Like that's it. So in the art of letting go, what she's essentially doing is she's like, I'll tell you one thing she said to me, because we'd have these in-depth conversations while she was working with me. And she goes, a lot of times somebody comes in here with an addiction. And when I remove whatever it is, say it's a gwei, which to them is a ghost, Savannah's full of ghosts that's attached to them, or it could be a demon, it could be all these different things. That's her interpretation of addiction, like hardcore addiction. She goes, once that's gone, their entire lives change. But you would see this constantly with her. People seeing her for 30 years, I would see them there. I mean, they would be stacked. You'd have to wait 30, 40 minutes to even get in, even though you're scheduled.
So, hey Jake, how you doing, brother? Hey Ada, hey Barbara, hey Lisa, hey Jay. So basically, if she's taken something away, which goes along the lines of what Bashar was saying about, because we all get so comfortable, and I'm just as, I'm not excluding myself from that at all. I know there's certain things that I have to let go and release and stop doing. And I've noticed since I stopped doing one of the things, I have noticed it's almost been like an instant change where I was worried about something, and I was trying to create something, but something was holding me back from doing that. And when I stopped doing the thing that was holding me back, it automatically happened by itself. Yeah. Like, for example, say if you wanted to buy something, you wanted a new couch or a new sofa or something like that, and you thought, right, I need to save up the money, or I need to win the money. I'm going to buy a lottery ticket or whatever to make enough money to buy a new sofa. But the thing is, maybe the fact that you think that you're trying to do something to make that money is blocking you from actually getting the sofa in another way, because you're narrowing the focus of how that sofa comes to you. So instead of, say, gambling and trying to win the money, then just allow the sofa to come to you. Someone might give you a sofa for free, or you might, I'm trying to say that there are different ways in which things can come to us. And that's basically what I think Bashar was saying. There are things that, like people with, gambling addictions, or people who with alcohol addictions or smoking or whatever. There are things that we sometimes we know we need to give up, but they're just too, we're just addicted to them. We're comfortable with them. But when we do give them up, then we notice how that they are usually the things that are blocking us from what we actually want. And the things that we actually want come in automatically without us necessarily having to do anything, apart from we let go of the stuff that we know is kind of keeping us sort of at a certain level, rather than allowing us to sort of, I think that's what raising the vibration sort of it means. It doesn't necessarily mean having a bath or buying loads of crystals and etc. etc. Although, you know, you can say those things help, it's always good to promote self-care. But I think we are trying, sometimes we deny I've done this, we try too hard on the to attain the things that we want without letting go of the things that we know we don't want.
Yeah. I know with some of my manifestations, I just throw it out there. I'm like, this is what I want. And then remember there was an Exabyte, and I wrote, when I was in my car at 3 a.m. in a hotel, and I was like, I want this, this, and this. And then within a week, that person came in. Now, it wasn't really, I was like, this is what I want. Now, I've done this with a bunch of things, and it works like almost every time if I'm really put the energy into it. But there's so much wiggle room of how that manifests. You know, if I was Tony Robbins, because I studied Tony Robbins, so I would put down, he wanted a wife, so he would write down 5 pages of what he wanted. But for him, that's how he works, I'm hearing. So, but he would write down 5 pages, but I don't know. Sometimes there's a little more wiggle room in there. But I think there also has to be action on some point. But sometimes the things we want is not really what we think we need. It is what we think we need, but it's not what we really want. I think that's the way to put it.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Hey, Lisa says the same thing. She says, say it and then trust it and allow it to come in. Hey, Tony. Yeah, totally. That's the thing. We sort of, I find that, and I do this. I think, right, I've got to do it this way, and then focus on that rather than allowing it to come in whatever way. Whether someone gifts you something that you wanted to, say if you wanted to save up or win enough money to buy something, you think that's the only way you're going to get it. But when you stop, when you take yourself out of that mindset, then just someone will probably gift that to you, or you'll find it, or something happen to bring you that. But we're so fixed on doing it a certain way.
Even Jimmy, like, sorry to interrupt you, but even with like, I remember telling my friend, it was like, I want to be in a men's group, and then all of a sudden it happened. And I was like, I want an air fryer, and I brought it up on a live, and one person who watches me just was like, I'm going to send you an air fryer.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this $350 air fryer. Anyways, but I'm like, Jesus, okay. But I think that's the key to it, is sometimes you have to look at what's in your life and what's not working. It's like the hermit card in tarot, I would say. That's how I interpret it. Is that you're looking down at everything, at least the original Waite Rider deck, and you're looking down at it, and you're like, wait a minute, what's not working here and what's working, and how do I change this? Because we become creatures of habit.
Yeah, totally.
And in that habit, we don't want to change it because we become accustomed to it. It's like the guides are saying, it's like an abusive relationship. You can be used to something in an abusive relationship and get away from it, and then be like, what on earth just happened? I give you an example. So I've told you this before, but when I hurt my foot doing martial arts right before the pandemic, and my guides had said, you have to do this work full time. And I was like, I do not want to do this work full time. I'm perfectly happy doing pest control. I am perfectly happy with the amount of money I'm making, whatever. Like, I wasn't totally happy, but I was relatively with it. But that's all I knew. So I ruptured a tendon in my foot. I had to be put in a foot brace, all these things. I had to wait like 3 months for it to heal, 3-4 months. They had to pay me a lot of money too, because they owed it to me. vacation and stuff. And it just happened to coincide 3 weeks before lockdowns happened, or even the pandemic came out that Sunday. I think it was like on a Wednesday or something. And but I had no idea by letting that go, everything that started shifting. Because I couldn't quit. I had to wait through it. But I was like, whoa, okay. I let this go. And I remember walking out of my friend's house. So I moved out of where I lived almost immediately. And I moved into my friend's house because it just felt right. And I'm looking outside during like the lockdowns. And I'm like, what on earth have I been doing for 11 years? Like, I'm just looking around and I'm like, what? It's like, actually, I have free time. I'm not working 6 days a week. I'm not like going insane.
6 days a week. Hey, Foofy.
Like, why would I go back to this?
Hey, Donna. Exactly. Tony says, yeah, looking internally is the power. True. Michelle says, did we already plan for this to come in? And then by manifesting it, we are just calling it in at the time we planned it.
I feel like Michelle's gonna know I'm a bit more rebellious in this thinking, but it's that I feel like there's a time that things can happen and it's subject to change for the person, the individual.
So is that what free will is? Although there may be certain things that we have already planned or agreed upon or whatever, we still have free will as with regards to whether they happen or what time, or maybe what time they happen.
I mean, Tony Robbins, they're bringing that up. So I talked to someone yesterday about Tony Robbins. When he began, he was very successful. He realized that, he's 20 years old or something. And he's like on the cover of newspapers, the next boy wonder. And he's like, my entire company crashed because I didn't feel like I deserved it. So he's like, I'm living in like a 20, like a 100 square foot apartment watching Days of Our Lives every day for like 3 months. I gained 50 pounds. Like, this is all I care about now. After he's been so successful, okay, and he lost the whole business, and he has nothing. And one of his friends comes over and was like, "You're Tony Robbins, dude." He's like, "What? He's like, "I just don't believe in this shit." He's like, "Get off the couch and go be Tony Robbins." And he's like, "Yeah, you're right." But that shifted his whole entire focus. It just took one person coming in and giving him that idea, and he just shifted. So even there's a guy I watch on TikTok called Tom Birchie, and he runs a potion shop in Thailand.
Okay.
I can say what that is.
Nice.
And so he's making all his money off TikTok. Well, he got kicked out of one business because of the people next door. And he was like, I didn't realize moving 250 yards away would start all this happening. Like, I thought I was done. And then it just blew up. Like, the whole shop blew up. Of course, he's making loads. He's making like 25, 35,000 just from TikTok. But he's posting 20, 40 videos a day. But he's been doing that the whole time, probably. It's his life. But he didn't realize by releasing one that he would, and moving over here, that everything would change. Yeah,
it's funny. I mean, I think some action is required, obviously, at certain times. But Karina says, I get the feeling to wait and ask at a certain time and place out of nowhere, and I receive what I asked for. I think it is about timing. But because, I mean, most of us are so comfortable with certain things, and we don't want to let go of certain things that we do, even though we know we should. We'd just rather do something else to compensate. But we don't necessarily need to do all of that kind of stuff. We just need to let go of the things that we know that we shouldn't be doing, but yet there's some attachment to them. And we all know what they are. We all very well know, but we don't necessarily want to look at them or try that one. But sometimes, like with you and like with most people, certain things will happen, which means that we have to do it, or else things are just going to get even worse. So Yeah.
And I felt that way too, Jimmy, honestly.
Mm.
There's been a lot of things my guides have been on me about. They're like, just do this, do this, do this. They're like, build the foundation.
Mm.
And everything will start shifting. It's not like you haven't seen this before. And I'm like, why am I hesitating on this? Like, why am I hesitating? I have to ask myself that.
Mm.
And I don't always know the answers to those questions. But yeah, but there's also an element, I'm also hearing there's an element of gratitude. So when you get into that energy and you start realize what you're grateful for, because if I looked at my life, God, Michelle would know this, but if I looked at my life 3 years ago compared to now, I wouldn't even, I'd be like, there is no way. Like I'm doing what I'm doing now. There's no way. But it just happened. TikTok came along and I went live and I was like, oh my God. Like, look at this. Like I knew it though. That just was so crazy. I resisted it, but I knew it. I just didn't know there was a live button on TikTok. So when I realized that, I was like, oh my God, this is the answer. And I just went with that. And I think sometimes as a Cancer, we want to hold on to things.
Yeah.
Like things become comfortable, but then things start to become very uncomfortable. Then you have to shift it.
Do you think that your star sign dictates your behavior, regardless of whether you want to behave like that or not? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
you said that you hold on to things because you're a Cancer, but is that actually ingrained in you, and so you can't do anything about it?
I think it could be psychological as well. I know my rising, so from my understanding of astrology, I'm not an astrologist, but my understanding is that your rising, so I'm Cancer, but my rising sign is Gemini. So a lot of people see me as a Gemini. But the thing is, I know Geminis and I know how they act. So I can kind of see how people would think that. Especially like male Geminis. I have one friend that's a male Gemini. But when I look at other people with these different signs, I do see those basic characteristics in them. So if someone gets around me that's like in a relationship, no offense to Geminis, as a rising sign is a Gemini. But if I get in a relationship with a Gemini or a Taurus, I expect certain behavior every time because I see it. I start seeing it, like the exact same things they're doing over and over. Like when you peel back the social exterior of who that person is, and you see how the inner workings are going. Because the Geminis are like two different people. And they'll flip back and forth. And I can't track them. So with a female Gemini, if you're in a relationship with them, you're like, I don't know who I'm talking to half the time in a relationship. But with a male, I can talk to him. Like my friend, he's a male, and he goes, dude, I don't know who I am half the time. He's like, I don't know when I flip back and forth at all. But he's a male, so we can have this conversation like openly. I'm like, explain it to me. I want to understand.
Yeah. Is there a case for that we're all Geminis in some ways?
Well, it could be in our birth chart. I think that rules us a lot too. Like my whole birth chart, spiritual. I had a guy that I'm friends with read it, named Eduardo, and he's very logical, and he was like, dude, he's like, everything in your chart is spiritual, man.
Oh, really?
He's like I ain't seen nothing like this. But then you have the human element of it.
Yeah. It's what was I going to say? Have we spoken about? We might have spoken about this on one of our other lives, and I don't know how true this is. I've never really studied astrology or anything like that, or star signs, zodiac, or even cosmology. But I saw a clip of someone who's supposed to be some kind of expert astrologist and tarot, etc. And I think I might have mentioned this, but she basically said that if we take on the star sign that we're born with. So I'm a Leo. So if I say I'm a Leo, I convince myself of those qualities, those traits, but it is a pathway or an avenue for whichever spirit represents Leo to kind of live through me or embody through me. And so we basically give permission for a spirit, call it a demon, call it an angel, what have you. We basically give permission. If we're calling ourselves that star sign and we're saying we are them, then it's basically giving permission for whatever entity to basically invade our body, so to speak, invade our mind and take on those qualities. Do you see what I mean?
Well, the problem is, I think, Jimmy, is that there's so many ideas floating around. There's so many experts.
I'm not saying I necessarily believe that. I just found it quite interesting with regards to the permission that we have. We give necessarily without knowing sometimes for certain beings to kind of influence us, shall we say?
Well, there is truth to that. Yeah. I think there's a lot more truth to that than people realize. I mean, even in the ways I was trained in, like Mayan shamanism, we're very, very careful about, or she was very, very careful, I'm hearing, about what she would let in. Like, she was calling on different masters and stuff, but the woman had mastered the dark before she'd ever mastered the light, and she was really open about that. But she knew the dark. Like, she knew what not to teach. Because she'd been down that path.
And that, I was just thinking, it was kind of unintentional, but that's a nice segue into what you were saying or the other thing we could talk about, which was dark Hollywood and all of that kind of stuff. Because, like, as you know, and as I've seen many things that say that they're, possessed, etc. They allow other beings to take over their body and perform these rituals and somewhat, I don't know, call it demonic or satanic or what have you. But yeah, so it's kind of a lead into that with regards to possession of the body.
Yeah, it's a very controversial topic. But Cat Williams, I'm sure you recently saw him come out. I don't know if you saw all his videos.
I've seen I have seen. I mean, I used to look at all of that kind of stuff a couple of years ago all the time, but I don't know. I don't really watch it anymore. But I do kind of keep up with what's going on.
Kind of went into all that. More from, like, I think, a Christian perspective. There's a girl I watch. I don't agree with a lot of what she says, but I do that with a lot of people that I watch on different apps. And I think she's a little bit famous too. But she'll talk about angelics, fallen angelics, but she'll read like Billie Eilish, she'll read Angelina Jolie, Taylor Swift, all these people. And I'll send you some of the videos of it. But it's very interesting because I do feel like they make these deals.
They all talk.
I mean, I remember, I'm just going to say stuff that I've seen. So I remember, like, Woe Vicky. I don't know if you ever remember her, but she got very popular. She's become a Christian, but she was talking about this like 2 years ago. She's like, I went to a Hollywood party and they oh my God, just saying, be careful. So she said it though on live camera, that she was like, they put a contract in front of us and we had to sign it in blood. And I was like, whoa, like, that's crazy. And then I would hear another person talk about it, another person. I remember there was forget her name. I don't want to say the wrong recording artist. It was Maya. That's who it was. And she said essentially, like, she was getting very popular and they offered her a lot of stuff. And she said,
she did a record, Ghetto Superstar with Praz, didn't she? Is that her?
I think so. Yeah.
That was a massive hit. Yeah.
But she got so big, and then they came to her and they were like, well, here's all this stuff you have to do. And she was like, nah. And then she just fell off the map.
I saw something recently about Andre 3000, from Outkast.
Yeah.
And they did the same thing. He was offered all of these things. And that's why we never heard from Outkast after their Speak Love Below Speakerbox, I think it was.
Yeah, because that went viral.
Yeah. And that's why we never heard from them after that, because he refused to participate in their debauchery.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it. You got to be part of the party. So I don't know.
I remember seeing
Seems
it.
myself do some really weird things in the
Yeah.
that could be tied in as something that I don't know. There could be something to it,
Mm.
but I don't want to get into the semantics of that. My guys don't want me to, but
Mm.
it involves both sides of the spectrum.
Mm.
I can say that. What else can I say? Careful. Okay. So essentially that there's a very light element to it too.
Mm.
I don't know. I don't quite understand it yet, they're saying, because I haven't done it.
Mm.
I think in the moment I'll understand
Yeah, you'll know.
what happens.
Mm. Yes, it's interesting. Well, it's all kind of quite interesting. Whether we should be paying attention to it or not, I don't know. But um, obviously, there's an argument that we don't need to pay attention necessarily to anything outside of us, except to I don't know, give us clues or give us guidance about the things that we we prefer or the things that we don't want. You can say that the reflection outside is what's happening inside, and it's all of that. It's called. I learned this word the other week. It's meteorological. Is basically when we are looking and interpreting things outside that are actually happening within us, and that I feel like we do a lot of that. We look outside of ourselves quite often for things that are happening within us. Say if we feel a certain way about something, and someone does something to make us feel a certain way, then if it's not a way we necessarily want to behave, then instead of asking ourselves why are we behaving like that, we'll blame the other person for making it happen, when we
Yeah,
should be.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think
So
that comes down to trauma and stuff like that.
yeah, and it's not easy. I mean, like, Christ. I mean, it's I don't know whether you'd call that a victim mentality, and whether I guess it would be, I suppose, if you're blaming someone else for the way something that happens to you. I mean, it's not necessarily true in all cases, obviously, I don't think, but it certainly seems to be on the rise where everything that happens to someone is always someone else's fault.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's because people aren't taking responsibility for their own life. It's
so,
easier to play the victim to get sympathy than it is to actually deal with your bullshit from here.
hey, Jazz. So, yeah, interesting. Um, Fufi says it definitely seems that obsession with Hollywood elite can steal a major portion of people's life.
I
So,
think it's interesting that everyone's become like famous in such a short period of time.
yeah, I
Like
know.
one video can make you famous.
Mm.
And it's like we're in this era. I think it's like supercharged. Like we used to have Instagram and Instagram women and pictures and all this stuff, and people are comparing themselves. But now we have this whole society where like anyone can become famous on some level. I mean, even remember with me with 25,000 on my other account, like going different places, and psychic people would be like, "Oh, we watch you," and I'd be like, "What?" Like we see your lives, and I'm like, "Oh, I don't understand that." But even with Facebook, other people pointed out there's like this person follows you and this person follows you, and I'm like, I don't know. Like
Yeah.
they're watching what you're doing, and I'm like, I don't know. So
Hey, Jazz. Yeah, I know what you mean. Hey, Raven. Yeah. So, has anyone got any questions that they want to ask or want to discuss or anything? We've got a bit of time. We've got about half an hour or so. If anyone wants to talk about anything, then feel free to throw it out there, and we'll see what we can come up with or what we can make of it. Have you got anything else, Thomas, that you want to?
I'm thinking we need to come up with like a list.
about why they always have the same picture in hotel rooms?
Yeah, this is a beautiful picture right here. It's every hotel room they have the same picture, at least in Georgia. I think this is in other places too.
Mm.
It had to win like a photography prize.
Yeah, probably.
Like, why is it every room? And this
Because I know you.
mirrors in every room too.
I know you've moved since. Well, you were in your car last week, but the week before you were in another hotel, and it was the same photo.
It's like the same exact room over and over and over again. It's quite insane sometimes. But it's something I've been talking about. Like, I need to get out of these hotels.
Mm.
So I can't handle it anymore.
Mm.
It's just too much.
Mm.
It's like the same exact thing you're seeing over and over and over and over and over. It's not
Mm.
technically your space either.
No, it's not.
It isn't.
You can get used to it if it's your own space, because obviously you spend.
Yeah, but after 10 months of this, man, like a year, maybe it's longer than that, except a little break in between. Like, man, it's like, I'm like, man, it's too much. I can't do it.
Yeah.
Internet sucks.
Mm.
It's the same thing every. I'm paying you like $2,000 a month.
Yeah.
Like, this is getting crazy.
Michelle says, "Is in a loop? Question mark or Groundhog Day? Question mark."
What was that? Sorry.
Michelle says he's in a loop? Question mark or Groundhog Day? Question mark.
I think that is kind of what I feel like.
It is
But I mean Groundhog Day or a loop,
Mm.
and it's just like. I think we all suffer with these loops. So it's like you want to change. There's certain people I see in my life, and I see the same things happening over and over again, and I'm like, tried to shake him out of this, but it's not up to me to shake him out.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, why do you keep repeating this pattern of behavior? So, and I could say the same of myself. I'm sure everyone could, but yeah, it's what I'm hearing is some people, they can't help themselves when it comes to those loops. It's like people I've seen that are adopted, Jimmy. And no offense to anyone who's adopted. I've dated 2 women that were adopted, and they act exactly the same. I think it's that, like, when they, in different ways, but they kind of the same structures. Because I'm always looking at patterns. But it's like they've been abandoned, so it's like there's a whole abandonment issue. They're looking for acceptance. I mean, it makes sense though.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I mean, it's understandable. You know, someone's adopted, then yeah.
I mean, I feel a lot of sympathy for them, but it's like they're continuously looking for this like sense of acceptance, and I don't know. I mean, I've just seen a bunch of different adopted people, but it's not everyone, obviously.
Yeah, I know. Jan said, so what is the topic today? Well, the topic initially, Jan, was we were talking about, what were we talking about? We were talking about, well, we just been recently talking about Dark Hollywood, and then initially it was, oh, that's right, the law of attraction, and how it's really, it could be about letting stuff go rather than sort of raising our vibration, so to speak. It could be letting go of the things that we don't want.
Well, I've said this a million times. Energy abhors a vacuum. So if you like push something out, new energy has to come in. It's one of the universal laws.
Yeah.
It's like you let go of something, it leaves all this open energy for other stuff to come in.
Yeah, too. So this this video, sorry, there was this bottle, reasonable sized bottle, with 3 or 4 inch neck, and it was full of water right up to the top. And there was another bottle full of beads, small beads, and someone, I don't know who it was, he placed one bottle on top of another, and the beads, they were displacing each other. The water kind of pushed the beads out and pulled the beads in at the same time, because the vacuum was created, because the water was traveling one way, and the water and the beads, they swap places, because one was being displaced and the other one was filling it. So it kind of
Yeah.
it made me think of what you were just saying about removing energy and then being replaced by something else. Is kind of like just a law of the universe almost in a sense. You know more about the laws of the universe than me. I don't know if that's one of them, but
Essentially, like, I'm trying to think of which universal law it is, but yeah, if it's just that once you remove something, there has to be energy that comes in. And then it's up to you to accept it, I'm hearing. Sometimes.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, you could be in a fight with whoever, and then however you're traumatized by that event, it's like, do you use that energy to move forward or do you stay stuck in it?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a matter of like what you choose you want to do with that.
All right.
So when I look at like certain things, like I don't know, like there's certain things I've gone through or certain boundaries I've set in place, because people hate boundaries sometimes when you put them in place in front of them. But they'll sometimes react and they'll be like, I like to see how people react when I lay down boundaries. So I'm like, this is not what I'm dealing with right now. And then they'll be like, they'll either back off or they'll like double down. And I'm like, told you not to cross my boundary.
Yeah, you've given them a warning.
Yeah.
Fire a shot across their bow. Bob says, do you guys believe in Dolores Canyon's technique of the QHHT? I noticed earlier she said she was going to get a treatment, and she obviously just wants to. And if anyone else who's watching is had a QHHT session, then feel free to share your experience or what you thought, etc.
I've had it done twice.
Have you?
I'll say this: I'm not a huge fan of Dolores Canyon, but I never have been, even when I first got into spirituality. But that's not to dissuade you. So it does work. Every time I've had it done on me, I don't know. I'm tricky. Like the first time it was done to me, I didn't know if I could trust the person. So I was in the angelic realm. I was sitting in my body listening to her, and then I was jumping in other places. Like I was in 3 places at once.
Oh yeah.
And then the second time, which is really weird, because I was going for answers this time. And I trusted the lady. So I went to her and I saw a version of myself that was like, I guess it was another lifetime. And he was dressed in all black, and he had like a black circle around him. He had a black sword. And like he tried to come after me.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, he's like, who are you? I'm like, I'm you. Probably like 1,000 years from now.
Yeah.
And we were going back and forth. I was like, you can't kill me. Like, this is not going to work. And he's like, why are you so light? And I'm like, because I am. Not you. So I don't know if it was my shadow. I think it was a past version of myself or something. But it was like this battle. I had to like put a light circle around me. And I'm like, how do I deal with this? Because it's like we're trying to fight, but he realized at some point that he was going to get nowhere with it. Because I was like, for as dark as you are, like I'm stronger than you. Like I'm you. And I'm light and you're dark. So this isn't going to work. We can't, neither one of us is going to win.
Yeah.
But we were going back and forth. And then afterwards, the lady who knew me, she's like, this is like the most interesting session I've ever had in my life. She's like, I knew this was going to be insane when I did this with you. Because she's done a lot of these, like probably hundreds and thousands or something. But she was like, I've never seen anything like this. And I was like, I don't know. I just what would happen.
Yeah, so that's all we can do, isn't it? Yeah. So no one won. Neither of you won.
Neither one of us won, but it was like some kind of understanding. Because I don't know if it was a dark version of me or my shadow. I'm still not sure on this. What does that mean? And I came away with a lot more questions than answers, which sometimes is good when you're working with somebody.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was like, okay, like is this what I could have turned into if I had chosen a different path?
Yeah.
This dude was really dark, like really dark. It really upset me too. And I was like, but this just went on for like a while. I think it was like 30 minutes, like going back and forth. And I was like, you can't hurt me. Like, it's pointless what you're doing. Just like, look at this sword. He's like coming at me with this black sword. I'm like, well, look at this one. It's light. Like, what's up?
They say it's in the Law of One, the Ra material. It's explained that they channel information about how there's two sides, a light side and a dark side, and you can go one or the other, and at any time you can cross over between one and the other. And Jan says we are both, and I think maybe we are, but there's always that. I guess if there's an infinite number of realities and or what have you, in an infinite number of universes, as supposedly there is. I mean, I don't know, but then I guess there must be, a version of a Dark Thomas in a thing that's going up that side of the whatever it is.
I was watching. I'm not finished with it, but I was watching the new DC movie Crisis on Infinite Earths. And I'm very familiar with a lot of comic books, so I watch them on YouTube all the time. And but it's a movie, and it's like one reality. Superman is like it's the crime syndicate, so they're very dark, like they rule the government. Like the whole Justice League rules the government. They rule the world basically, and because they have that power. But on another Earth, they're like heroes, and it's showing all these different versions of them. Right. The Flash is running around through different realities because he does that when he does this thing. Because they've made a lot of movies, even the Flash movie was kind of like this in a way too. But yeah, I think in different realities, there's so many different versions of ourselves, and I think it's such a hard thing to wrap your head around. I know quantum jumping was originally explained as this, that you could go to other realities and talk to other versions of yourself that had done something that you could do.
Right. Hey, Karina.
Answers.
We've got two Karinas, one with a C, one with a K. Karina with a C says, I retrieved fractals of my soul from a past life. So does that mean I changed my present? Because I feel so much better and confident now.
Yes. Getting
Why not?
I do that. I'll if I need to in certain sessions. I will bring back fractals. I did that with a client recently. So there was something with Egypt. I had to remove the dark, like energy from that lifetime, and bring back the light energy. And I had to ask my guys, like, is this something I should really do? And they were like, yeah. I was like, okay. I don't really understand what I'm doing, but let's do it. So
why not? And I always wonder how does a fractal become, I don't know, separated from a soul, and is it just a trauma, a really horrific trauma? Why do we need to bring them back in the first place? What happened so that made them stay where they go, wherever they were, if you see what I mean?
Yeah, that's a hard question.
Yeah, I don't necessarily.
How do you remember? I'm hearing, how do you remember?
Sorry.
But like, how do you remember? I mean, if actually I've had close to 1 billion lifetimes because I've asked this question, how on earth could I remember all of that? I would go insane. Like, what have I done over here? I've seen myself do all kinds of things, but a lot of it's earth-based. Some of it's extraterrestrial. But I'm like, I don't. Sometimes I see the ET stuff. I'm like, I don't understand what on earth this is. But I think it's only from our realm of like understanding is what I'm hearing. But I think in a lot of past lifetimes you could have done something, because I've seen this with clients. You have too, I'm sure. Is that like they were a witch and they got tortured or something? So they're very afraid of walking back into that energy of like being a spiritual worker. Because something that happened, and like I think this one girl calls it the witch wound. Because almost all spiritual people would have been considered witches at some point. I know that has such a negative connotation, but I find that entertaining because it's like Christianity has a negative connotation, and then witchcraft has a negative connotation. The reason you hate witchcraft is because of Christianity, but you don't like Christianity. So it's like it doesn't make logical sense to me. Not saying I don't really use witchcraft, but the point is that I know it if I needed to, but it's more of a defensive thing. If I need to protect myself. So, but the point is that what's the difference between that and shamanism? My guides are saying. So it's like,
yeah, exactly. There isn't really a difference, is there?
There really is. I mean, we were never taught that kind of stuff, but we knew it was there. But I mean, you're talking about a 36,000 year lineage of these shamans.
And I had an experience once, and I'm not sure whether it was in a dream or whether it was real, and I was sleepwalking or what have you. But it seemed so real, and it seems realer than I know dreams can seem real, but when they just when you have an experience, you think when you question it, because most of the time if you've been dreaming, don't you?
Yeah.
What's the difference between a dream and this reality. But there was one experience that I'm not sure which one it was, and basically I can remember sitting in my hallway in a ball, sort of on the knees against my chest, arms sort of in a sort of a cowering position almost, as if I was afraid. And the reason that I was afraid, it was mainly because I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know how to handle what was going on. But I could hear everyone in my head, all of the voices. It seemed like all of the voices in the universe, they were in my head all at once, and it was just a jumbled mess. It was just everyone talking at once. It's like I was connected to everyone. I could hear everyone, but I couldn't understand them, and I couldn't make it stop. And it was quite scary. It was quite frightening. But I can't remember what happened afterwards, whether I woke up, whether I just went back to bed, or what. I can't remember. But I don't know if anyone else has had an experience like that. And it was unusual, put it that way. And I don't know why I had it.
I don't know. I think sometimes we're remembering other things. Is what I'm getting. That happened to us, maybe another lifetime, or what we're doing over wherever that is that you went. But the same, it feels like it's almost like a past thing. But it does feel like multidimensional. But with me, I think a lot of my dreams are more psychological. But I could be doing a lot of spiritual stuff and have no earthly idea while I'm asleep. Because I've had clients message me. This is not lately, but it's very random. Like, you popped into my dream and you showed me this, and like you yelled at me. You don't do it all the time. Like, you're like, you need to do it this way. And then you just popped in, popped out. And then one girl, which was really strange, was 2 years ago. She's like, she was a client of mine like twice. And she goes, yeah, I had this dream with you in it, and you were a blue alien. You had black around your eyes, like black on the skin. It's like, so what you're telling me is that I visited you in dreams before, and you never told me this? She goes, yeah, that's not the issue. The issue is the alien thing. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I have no conceptual idea of what you're talking about. And like, other people had said that, like, on lives, they had seen my face morph. It's Syrian. I know it's that. It's Syrians. But I know I've been a Syrian on Earth before. But the point is that I'm like, I don't know. Maybe she goes, no, all those dreams were fine. It's just you popped in as an alien. And I don't understand what this means. I was like, I don't understand what it means either. I don't know. You think I have control over this? It's like my higher self's doing something. I have no idea.
I remember one of the first, when I started to get into the whole spiritual thing 3 or 4 years ago, whenever it was, maybe 5. One of the first readings that I got was from a Toronto medium, William Michael Forbes. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he was basically a mentor on the channeling course that I did. And because I asked him a question, I said, why sometimes do I A, fall asleep in meditation, and B, can't remember what happens when when I'm asleep. Sometimes I can't always remember my dreams or etc.
Mm-hmm.
And he was channeling, and he said basically the reason is because sometimes things happen in our dream when we're dreaming, when we're asleep, that we are not able to reference based on our human experience. So something can happen and we've got no way of being able to explain that or to reference that from the human experiences that we've had, and so therefore we don't remember it because we have no point of reference to it, if you see what I mean. So something can happen, but we don't understand it in our human form, so therefore we can't relay what happens because we don't know how to explain it, or we don't have the I guess the material, the imagination to explain it, so therefore we can't, and so we don't remember it. And
Yeah.
it kind of made sense to me.
Yeah, I
Can you
don't think
explain
we can fully
something?
understand.
Yeah, how can you explain something that you have no idea what it is, or even what's happening, and you've never seen it, even though we would have seen that before in maybe other lifetimes, in other realms, in other dimensions, etc. But purely from a human perspective, our interaction, our experiences are fairly limited in a sense, in a
And
way.
whatever doctrine we've been fed.
Mm,
I'm watching, I forget his name. He's a black guy. He's very popular. I think I may have sent you one of his videos. Billy Carson, that's who it is. So, but he's going like head over heels about how the Bible is like full of Anunnaki and all this stuff.
oh yeah.
And people are just like eating him alive in the comments. It's not even his channel. People are just taking his talks and cutting them up and posting
Oh
them.
right. Yeah.
But they like think like they're talking to him, which I find so funny. Anyways, but they sit there and they're like, this is wrong. But I'm like, your belief system is this.
Mm,
And how do you know he's not?
yeah, exactly.
Like, he's coming at you with I was like, this guy's read every religious text that exists.
Mm,
He thinks Thoth was in like all these different traditions. He believes that Thoth trained Jesus too, like in Egypt. There is some, if you look, and I know I'm kind of going off the rails here, but books of the Christ Child 1, 2, and 3, which are Gnostic texts. There's a lot of Gnostic texts. Some of them I don't agree with, some I do. But in this one, Jesus was trained in Tibet. They knew what he was. He was trained in India. And Tibet has actually records of this. Trained in India, in Tibet. He was trained in all these different places. Because he knew what he was. Like he had to go to Egypt and learn like the mystery schools and all these other things. I haven't read all the books of the Christ Child 1, 2, and 3, but I've skimmed through parts of it.
all right.
But a lot of that's in there. But why wouldn't Jesus have done that? I mean, he has how many missing years of his life? Like 27?
Was he? I don't know.
I mean, they knew he was.
Was he 30? Was he 33 when he?
Yeah, something like that when he came back, but he disappeared for so long. Like, where did he go? And I think when around the time he came back to when he went into the desert, which I always argue, he said he had to confront Satan, but I'm like, I think he had to confront himself.
That's and sort of on the sort of a counter to that. I've seen documentaries where these, shall we say, they called bibliographers or historians or what have you. They basically argue the case that Jesus never existed anyway. It was just and all of the Bible stories are basically metaphors and allegories, and they represent either the internal workings of the human body or the workings of the earth. Like Jacob's ladder is referenced in with 33 steps, and the spine has 33 vertebrae, and all of that kind of stuff. You can find a reference to, and so there's some that contend that Jesus even actually existed, and yes, there were loads of people actually called Jesus, but whether they debate whether did all the things that they said he did, basically because the story of Jesus in the Bible is replicated in other religions in other parts of the world, exactly the same, but in just with maybe the odd thing changed. And did this? I mean, I'm not saying that it didn't happen, but did the same person incarnate in those religions, in those spaces, in those times, and perform the same things as they did? You know, it's all a big mystery for me. I don't really know. I think there's some truth in everything, to be honest with you. Hey, Len, how you doing, brother? I think there's some truth in it all. And
a lot of times I just defer back to Edgar Casey, because he's like one of the very few people that has been time and tested and legit.
Yeah, I think sorry.
He talked about this. So like, and he didn't like talking about this because the guy was a Sunday school teacher. He was perfectly happy doing like medicine stuff, healing people. He didn't want to talk. People started asking about chakras, and he started talking about chakras. He's like, I don't like this. He quit for a while and came back to save his wife's life. But anyways, but he said he had a past lifetime where he helped write the Gospel of Philip. And there were some other things, but there's a quote I always use because I don't know why it stands out of all the Edgar Casey books I've like read about his trans channel. He says the Christ soul has directly or indirectly affected every religion that has taught oneness with God, starting with Paul one in Atlantis and ending with the cross. The next incarnation of the Christ soul would be to bring in the kingdom of David. Now that could be interpreted a million different ways, but at the same time, it's like he had to incarnate into every religion that taught oneness with God, whether that be light or dark. If God's everything, then in between that and the time he was Jesus. So a friend of, an old mentor of mine would say he had to literally incarnate into like every dimension to get to that place. He had to experience everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Like neutral, light, dark, everything.
And it's possible, I suppose. Why not?
Yeah, that means he could have been Thoth. He could have been all these other people. The Horus. It's the same story. It pretty much exists. I believe it's Horus.
Yeah, I think. I
like
think
3 days and all that.
Yeah. I think it's Horus, and all of the others. Jan says ideas for preventing my. I'll put it on the screen. That'd be easier.
Oh, it's a hard one, isn't it, Jimmy? So sometimes, Jan, when I'm on like TikTok and other apps, people ask me these questions. I have no idea how to answer them in like 2 minutes. I feel like it's a whole like hour of explanation, but sometimes you transmute energy, but it's I'm getting not to say it that way. I can mention Rossi, my former teacher. Rossi, I always felt would take on people's attacks and transmute them for them. To me, that seems insanity. I will never do that. I've done it a couple times for very specific people because it was what I felt was the right thing to do. But I would never do that because I'm like, you're putting yourself through like insane amounts of pain. And I'm talking about people really getting spiritually attacked. I don't even get, I help people all the time with that, but I don't get involved. Like I don't take it on myself.
No.
So, but I have a couple times. And anyways, but there's probably reasons I'm hearing for that. And anyways, but I think sometimes we're taking on other people's energies, and I don't know. It's just reminding me of something. So I was having some health issues like a year ago, and someone reminded me of how sick I got when someone else got there, where I was at. I don't want to say names. So the thing was that, and I was like, oh. And then I think about somebody else, and I'm like, I was dated this person, and then they came in my apartment, they came in my room, and everything went haywire. Like I let them in my space. Like everything was fine until I let them in. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So sometimes I think you have to be careful. Like I don't think people really realize what energies they're working with sometimes, especially if they're new to it, or even not new. I'm hearing like they just go with what they got, and you have to be really careful, like looking at people's. Jan, I'll just say this is the message I'm getting for you. Just be really cognizant of. I use the word cognizant of how you look at other people's energy. Like, do they? You can have friends, but what I'm saying is, you have plenty of friends with like their energy may not really match with yours, but at the same time, they're your friends. So, but also, how is it like lovers and stuff affect you?
Yeah.
Because you got all emotions in there.
Totally. And Jan, I was going to say that I know you put that others' pain goes away, and you love helping, and you do have to take care of yourself. We all do. And what I was initially going to say was that kind of the way that I look at it is just the way that I view it. Instead of kind of seeing it as, oh, I mustn't do that, allow yourself to do it when it feels right. And so you're not necessarily saying, yes, I'm going to do it every time, or no, I'm not going to do it at all. I feel like when you say, right, okay, I'm just going to allow it to be what it is, and kind of be open to it happening if it needs to happen, or if you get a feeling not to do it or what have you, then it won't happen. But having that, I don't know, that mindset maybe, or that feeling that, right, if someone comes to me, or if I'm with someone and it needs to happen, then allow it to happen. So sort of coming into a place of allowance, and like going with the flow, that chestnut, of just letting things be as they will be, rather than trying to control what happens. Like release control of the situation, to the energies, and allow them to decide what happens, rather than necessarily you saying, well, I'm going to take control of this, and this is not going to happen, or this is going to happen, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
And then things will, because you may be taking someone's pain away, and then in the next sort of making you feel a certain way might be is what is needed for you, because it might bring up something that you either have to look at or you need to be aware of. So it's not just necessarily a one-way thing, it's a two-way thing. And sometimes we need to feel like crap, because it will bring our awareness to something that we're either doing or that we need to look at. So I find that, I mean, we all want to sort of keep in control and be in control, I get that. But and it's not easy sort of letting it go. Lisa says, why is releasing control so hard? Yeah, it is.
I think that's key though. It's why is it so hard? Because everyone wrestles with this one. They want to control like a relationship, a friendship, or whatever it is, their life, this, because they don't want to be uncomfortable in here. I don't know. I saw scientifically that when you're uncomfortable, there's a certain part of your brain that grows. It's been proven though. So when you put yourself in these uncomfortable situations, like you will grow, but you have to be willing to put yourself in uncomfortable situations. And that used to be something I really like doing. Part of me still does, but I've got a little more hesitant with it. So, but how else do you grow?
Exactly. You can't. There's Jenny says Jenny's similar. It seems part of my abilities is to take on attacks because I can apparently naturally transmute and purify the energy. Yeah, and I think there are many people who can do that.
Yeah, I don't take them on. So it's just I noticed that with Rossi. So it was like I just noticed it. So it was like you are taking on these attacks and they are wreaking havoc on you.
Mm,
And I was like, why? Maybe I just got that was the way she was trained.
mm,
So, I mean, I remember one time I helped a girl out on Facebook. I don't want to tap back into this energy, but the point was is that this dumb girl, okay, sorry, she's not watching. This dumb girl, I know she's not. So, like, her friend's being attacked by a coven of witches, very powerful ones, I'm hearing. And she comes and she goes, well, what I decided to do was to form my own group of people and go against them. I'm like, why on earth would you do that? So I helped her. And the few times this has ever happened to me, I got hit like a freight train.
mm,
Now, there were other extenuating circumstances of why I didn't have the power levels I would have normally had. But I got hit. So I called Rossi, my former teacher. So we were like, I'd broken apart from her for like 2 years and I came back for like 10 days and then I left again. It's like, I can't deal with what you're doing. I can't be a part of this energy. So, and she was like, cool, whatever. But she starts screaming at me. She's like, you got all these dark fairies attacking you. This is craziness. And what are you doing? And blah, 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 blah. And I was like, she's just ranting and raving. And I'm like, Jesus, like I can't deal with you either. Just get rid of this so I can move on. I was like, I gotta get rid of you too. Like I can't be in this energy of what you're doing. She was siphoning my power too. But you know, whatever. That's a whole nother story. But then she let me go and she's like, my power levels returned back to where they were. They got stronger. But I was like, why would this girl do this? Like what made her in her head think that she could, and I just did it because I felt like it was the right thing to do. I should charge her like $500, my guys are saying. But why did I think this was the right thing to do? So, or why did she think it was the right thing to do? It's like, why are you going to take on a coven of like very advanced witches that are going after your friend?
I guess you do it to test yourself, to make yourself uncomfortable.
Yeah,
Maybe.
she was so screwed because of this. Like literally, she was so messed up. And I'm like, Jesus, like pick and choose your battles.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it was a decent lesson for her to reevaluate, have a good think about the things that she does. But yeah, I don't know.
I have to be careful, Jimmy, because like I had someone message my website, and they don't watch Facebook. So is that, and they were like, "Can you help me with X, Y, and Z? There's this creator and blah 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 blah." And my guys are like, "It's a trap." And I talked to someone about it, and they're like, "Well, you can make a lot of money from this." I'm like, "Is it worth making a lot of money from this?" I go, "I feel like I'm gonna get in a battle that is just not. Yeah, I might win it. I'm hearing I probably would, but at what cost?" And I was like, man, I don't want to get involved in this. Like, it's too dramatic.
Yeah,
and then she's gonna go tell all these other people that I helped her, and then they're gonna find out. It's just gonna be like this and this. And I'm like, oh my god, I don't have time for more battles with people right now. Like I've had enough. Like leave me alone, please.
Yeah, we don't like peace is the most important thing, I think, in a sense. And
yeah, it's something I'm trying to focus on, man. Is that people try to like pull me into like this drama. They'll message me with all these dramatic things, and I'm like, I don't care. Like, stop messaging me. Like, it'd be about me. Like, someone messaged me. She's probably watching. No offense to the person if they're watching, but they were like, I feel like this is gonna happen, and blah 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 blah. When you do this, and I'm like, I don't care. Like, I'm fine. Leave me alone. I was like, I'm over here now on this other app. I'm over here. Leave me alone. I'm over here.
Yeah, because
like, very happy and peaceful. Leave me alone. I don't have time for this drama over there. I'm not in middle school. Leave me alone. Yeah, just leave me alone, please.
You think if everyone kind of wanted peace, then there would be peace because there would be no one to fight with.
Yes, I don't think humans can handle that. I've said this many times, is that the human species, we had to be the most like vile, oh, people are not gonna like this. The vile, like conquering species to overcome every other species that were out there.
Yeah.
Like we had to be ruthless. So how does that transcribe into now? It means we still have some of that energy.
I saw it's funny you mentioned about Anunnaki. I saw I watched it in a couple of parts because it was a couple of hours long. But there's a guy called Lloyd Pye, Pye, and he did a presentation and he's wrote a book and everything. It says everything. It's basically titled "Everything You Know Is Wrong," and he basically talks about evolution and why it's not as. He's got provides proof and evidence that even from monkeys, or we didn't come from the primordial ooze and walked on land into amphibians and then transformed into blah blah, and then went down the thing and eventually we were primates and then we became human. He said that's not, if you look at the evidence that's out there, it's not possible. It's kind of, I know everything's possible, but he says the evidence doesn't show that we came, our evolutionary origins are not what we're told they are. He says it basically says that we were created by, you can call them the Anunnaki or whatever, but with a dumbed down version.
I think there's a lot of I saw Tom DeLonge talk about this, but I'll go on that first. Is that I think I remember a bunch of races working on this, like all of them. I mean, not all of them, maybe the ones that are around our solar system that interact with us. But they were like, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. And it was like a trade kind of thing. Like, okay, well, or how do we make this work? So, and I remember someone seeing me in a vision as an ET doing this in like Egypt. How long ago in Egypt? That's another question. I think Egypt's a lot older than people believe it is. So the thing is that, yeah, they're saying we did. And so different ones. And then on the other flip side of that, you talked about like consciousness and how we're being repressed in different ways. I saw Tom DeLonge talk about this, and at first I thought he was insane, but now I kind of think there's something going. The guy from Blink-182. So he said there's a black pyramid they found in Alaska, and like they show pictures of it, I think, but they go, this thing's on, like it's always broadcasting, and they're like, they don't know what it is, but they realize that it was suppressing consciousness.
All right.
Like expanding.
Oh, really? I've heard of the Black Rock, as they call it, Mount Meru. In the North Pole, in the center of the North Pole, the big mountain.
There's a lot of these floating around.
Magnetic. That's why all compasses point north, because there's a big magnetic mountain there.
I wouldn't be surprised. Lord knows, I mean, Tucker Carlson talks about this. It's all over YouTube. However you feel about Tucker Carlson doesn't really matter. I just find that he's saying some crazy stuff, which I enjoy. Like a conservative guy that got fired from Fox News, but he's trending. But he was like, the one thing that doesn't make any sense is there's all these elitists that are talking about, they won't tell you the true history of the world. And he's in the know with people. That's the thing. He knows things. He's been in the news industry since I've been like 21 years old. So, on like Fox News. So he goes, the thing is that they won't tell you that there's been advanced civilizations over and over again throughout like history, and they're all destroyed by cataclysms.
Oh yeah.
And they continuously just keep popping up, and they're like, these people they think they're gods. They can control all the narratives of everything. So, yeah, and it's like, now when I meet my colleagues, a lot of them like look at me in disdain because I'm telling people stuff that I can't I'm not supposed to be speaking about.
Yeah. I
And
know.
like, who cares?
Mm.
Like, whatever.
And I mean, you think about it. You look at the buildings that were supposedly built in the 1700s and 1800s.
Yeah.
How tall they are, how big they are, the size of the doors, etc., and the intricate detail which they're carved out of pure stone. And supposedly, all of the tools that they had in that time were a hammer and chisel. And they made all of these beautifully symmetrical, geometrical figures. Everything is beautifully with the laser like precision. Yet they only had a hammer and a chisel, and they got around with horse and cart, and they were stupid, and they didn't have any. You think, well, that is just, that doesn't make any sense at all.
Well, even my friend showed me this temple in India, and it's carved down. So like the bedrock's way up here. They carved into this to make this massive temple with all these complex. So they had to carve the rock out. I'm like, that doesn't even make logical sense. How did they carve the rock out to make this beautiful temple with all these intricate figures and all this stuff? It doesn't even make sense.
When
I look at it, you're like, how on earth? And this, no one knows. I think this thing is like 5,000, 10,000 years old. Like, how on earth did they do this?
And there's stuff like that you think, well, if that's clearly been lied to about that, then what else is there?
I think it's a lot. I don't think they want us to wake up to what we really are. I don't think they want us to wake up to what we truly are, because if we woke up to what we truly are and we knew the truth, what I'm hearing is like the chains would be taken off. It's like even the psychic thing. It's like I feel like we're only concentrating on certain things that need to be concentrated on, like healing and stuff like this, which is great, and energy work and all these things. But what could you really do?
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
that's what I'm starting to think. I'm like, what could I really manifest? If I'm so good at like manifesting things, what could I really manifest? Like, am I only limited by what my scope of belief is? And what if I just took the chains off and like said, this is what I want? And then it starts shifting and reality starts shifting. It's like with witchcraft, I'll say this. As I said, there's very few times I ever use it. But there's a lot of people that we know this, that use this in secret, never speak about it. They're spiritual workers. There's a lot of people. So the thing is that, like, if I were to cast a spell to remove people from my life that not really, just for them, whoever they are, God, source, to determine my guides, who needs to be there and who doesn't. Like, which I'm not saying I've done that, of course, but the point is that it was a much different spell. But the point is that I put my intention into something. Now, could that have still worked if I had just put a Red Bull can with water and done the same? Instead of making it so complex. You get what I'm saying, though?
Yeah. So it's basically, it's not necessarily about what you do. It's the you can do the same spell but use different things.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily have to be the toenail of a frog or the eye of a bat. It can be a USB adapter and a card.
Yeah, it's just what you believe is going to work. So I don't know, but I mean, I've studied under one guy, but the thing is that, yeah, I mean, I don't like it. I don't like witchcraft, as I said, too much. But the point is that I feel like it's important sometimes. It can shift your reality. I've seen it happen. And it's like, sometimes like, what's the difference between like doing cord cutting, what we do energetically, and what someone does is like using a spell?
Yeah.
There's not a difference.
On my Rumble channel, where I stream my frequency stuff, my healing frequency stuff all day, well, most of the day anyway. And there was someone who commented on one of my one of the videos or the frequencies, and I can't remember which one it was. I don't think it was necessarily a specific one, but they were saying that they healed their, I think they had a crushed vertebrae in their spine, or a few crushed vertebrae in their spine, and he said he was imagining it being healed, doing all of that intent, setting the intention of it being healed and by going back to normal. But it really ramped up when he got crystals involved.
Yep.
And I think that sort of, in those instances, then maybe if he'd have used something other than crystals, it might have had the same effect. But I think there are certain things that we can work with that do have a certain.
Well, the thing about crystals, I feel, because I like crystals a lot. I wear a lot of them, but for times there, it's really been my bracelets. But is that Edgar Casey would talk about this, and he would say he would do that in his medical stuff. He'd be like, you need to use this crystal and put it on this part of your body. Do this and do this and do this and do this. He would have a whole thing for a health thing that a person would do. Maybe he'd have them drink it. I don't know. But he would just go, he's called a sleeping prophet. So he didn't even know what he was saying until he came out of trance.
Yeah.
They had someone record everything for him. So
like the raw material.
Do what?
Like the law of what? The raw material.
Yeah. So like he just would go into trance and say everything and then come out of trance. So and they'd be like, what did I say? Whatever. So but yeah, different crystals, and it's one I've talked about. People need to be careful with this, my guys are saying. But I believe it's azurite, Azurite.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that.
Casey said he would talk about lapis a lot, and then he would talk about auralite, or azurite. Sorry, azurite. So azurite, he said, is the most psychic. Like it'll make you more psychic. He would go mine it.
Oh right.
Because he didn't even know what it was until he channeled, and he's like, "Let me go read some of this stuff and see what we get."
Yeah.
So, yeah, but they hold like a consciousness in them, like an intelligence.
Well, that's the thing that makes you wonder. I mean, I've seen stuff on the petrified and silicone trees, etc. And I think stuff where it says, Himalayan pink salt is actually the petrified remains of giants, Nephilim, whatever you like to call them. Because if you slice it open, it looks like someone, and you put a cross section of someone, a slice of meat or some bacon or whatever, they look similar. Like a big chunk of Himalayan salt looks similar to a chunk of meat, and it's a bit of a sort of a theory, but there are some that say obviously they're just the remains or the crystallized remains of those that were living here previously, and what's to say that that's not the same with all crystals. All crystals are the crystallized or petrified remains of that which has lived here previously, and obviously in a time when things were a lot more, shall we say, psychic or spiritual or advanced, and that's why they have that power, that energy, because we're tapping into those the past, so to speak, and we're harnessing that energy and bringing it forward, and that's why that the crystals have these powers that necessarily I don't know, a wooden table or a rock or something like that. They do have certain everything. I guess has energy and emits a certain kind of something. But yeah, it's all. I mean, will we ever know? I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know. I mean, you could say like even this stand that I'm using. I got new ones in my car, but because my other one broke when I was moving into this hotel. But it's like this stand feels important to me for different reasons throughout the last 3 months. Maybe on some level, I feel like this stand that's holding this phone is magical. The importance it has to me. It's like falling to pieces too. But the point is that, like, because I keep using it over and over again. but for some reason it feels magical to me. I don't know why, but maybe that's just my own. I'm giving this energy, or like putting this energy on a phone stand.
Someone will dig it up in 5,000 years, and they'll be blown away by the energy.
Like, what's a phone? I did see something recently. It was who was it? Was it Atlantis? No, it wasn't Atlantis. It was like I don't remember what it was. They found this. There's a shipwreck, and they dug up this computer. They didn't know what it was, but they cleaned it up, and it still works. Like once they cleaned it up, but it was actually like we're talking like I think it was a gift to like Julius Caesar or something. But it was old, and it was essentially a working computer, but not the way we would see a computer. I'm trying to remember exactly where they found it, but they found it at the bottom of the ocean, like under.
I vaguely know what you're talking about. I remember seeing something either seeing that or something similar. So I can't remember the details. It was a while ago, and it was only a brief sort of thing. But I know what you mean.
Yeah. And I'm like, look at what that's my point with these ancient civilizations. Are we just recreating the same thing?
We're like going Back to the Future.
Yeah, it's like if they had it, then it's. I think Einstein said that. He goes, every thought is out there. So it's like every invention's already out there. He goes, when I find an invention, I don't know how he explained it, but he like plugs into whatever, and he pulls the thought, and then he invents it. He goes, all these things are available to find. I think Tesla kind of said something to that effect too.
Yeah. I remember. I mean, in a sense, I never know when I see a quote from someone, I think, well, did somebody make that up and attribute it to that person? But because that happens a lot, as far as I've seen. But I do recall the Tesla quote, or paraphrasing, but he said that when he just has to imagine what he wants to happen, and then he imagine how it would work, and then he just builds it. He doesn't need to draw diagrams. He doesn't need to do.
He would come in his sleep, I think, if I remember.
Yeah, he would imagine it, or would come in his sleep or whatever, and then he would just build it. He wouldn't worry about plans or anything like that. He would just imagine how it should work, and then it would work. Well, I say it would work. I don't know how many times
I think the problem with Tesla is he went against the government. He tried to give all his energy for free.
Yeah.
And that they left him penniless.
Yeah, I know.
But I think that was his problem. He should have worked with the government, just taken some money for it. Like, I don't think these are the right people to mess with. Like, maybe we should just give them the stuff, let them pay me some money.
Antikythera. I don't know that, Fufi. What is that? Antikythera mechanism. Have you heard of that?
No, that may be what we were talking about, though.
Jenny says, if it existed here, there, and then and there, it exists now and here. Good. Yeah. So, have you got anything else, or should we?
I think we're good.
Yeah, we call it a day. Right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us and listening in, and for contributing everything. Thank you, brother, and we shall see you all again next week.
Yes, we will. Have a beautiful day.
Take care, everyone. Au revoir.